Look at 1965 Buick 425 Nailhead motor. And it's a later one, 425 cubic inches. It has a certain bell house in it. You can put a late model transmission in it.
Oh, really?
Instead of an old power, the old Dynaflow 2-speed. This happens to be one that's rebuilt. It's got 10 thousandths under on the rod bearings and 10 on the mains. And then you can see it's got brand new pistons in it.
Oh, yeah.
You see the bore there, and you look down this way a little bit more, you can see the bore is all brand new.
Very nice.
So somehow or other this build got interrupted. We don't know why, or it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But this is the stage at what we're at.
It's 30 over pistons in it.
Ed's been looking at the motor and going into the motor to see if what was done was properly done, because the dumbest thing you can do is take a motor that's rebuilt from some unknown person and then say, oh yeah, it's fine, and then you spend all this other time putting it together and finishing it out, and you put it in the car, and then you find out, oh my God, the guy had no idea what he was doing.
Yeah.
So now you got to back up all again and start all over again, which is kind of stupid. So Ed's been looking into it to see if the clues of how it was rebuilt tells him if this was a quality builder or just some guy way over his pay grade.
So what have you found so far?
Well, we just see that it's been rebuilt lately.
Mm-hmm.
And it had oil in it, but the oil was, I don't think it's ever, if it was probably ran 15 or 20 minutes.
Okay.
And,
so from what you can
see, the guy that I got it from said it had been rebuilt.
Right.
And so and he was trustworthy, but I want to still make sure that.
Do you happen to know the guy you bought it from well enough to know that he's not full of you know what?
Yeah.
Well, that helps a lot, because the people you deal in parts with have a reputation for either being full of knowledge or full of something else. Yeah. So this is really, really a tricky thing to do, is buy a motor that's rebuilt. But if you have somebody like Ed, it's pretty hard to fool Ed.
We can turn it over. Yeah.
Oh my God. This is not a 6-cylinder. Okay.
Well, the Nailhead's got the valve cover straight up and down, and actually the ports on this motor, the Nailhead, or the Buick motor, all those, had a long, skinny port. And that actually, General Motors says this head flowed more air than any other head they ever designed.
Really?
Of all the years of Chevrolet making them, GM making them motors.
Right.
But this one flowed more air than all the rest of them, the design of it. Then we look back at it right now, the new LS motors, the new Chevy motors, the pickup truck, has the same design.
Really?
It does. That's where they got it from. It's a long, skinny port.
Okay.
And now the late model motors, that's why they're so common in pickup trucks and Corvettes and everything else, that they do flow more air. And everybody said that whether they like the LS motor or not, it's got a lot of horsepower.
Yeah, for a reasonable amount of money.
For a reasonable amount of money and less cubic inches.
Right.
You don't have to have 600 cubic inches to put out that much horsepower.
Now this is a big engine. It's 425 cubic inches, and when it's punched, what would you guess it to be? Another 10 inches or something?
Probably 10. Yeah, you don't get much on 30.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was 30 over?
Yeah, it's 30 over, yeah.
Where is that on the list of getting near the end of the motor?
Well, you can bore it 3 times. 30, 40, and 60 is what we like.
Really? So 60 is...
It's okay.
So we're way far away from that.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Well, if we're right at the edge, well, that means that motor's probably lived a hard life and it's been rebuilt 2 or 3 times.
Possibly.
That's not a good sign.
No, it's not a good sign. No.
And if it lived in a car that was well cared for.
You usually get 100. This Buick's here is just like a little bit like the Lincoln, like you know that the Buick, they rare for them to be driven that much.
No, they didn't.
They're not something. They're a classic car and.
They were not used as taxis.
Yeah, okay. They're not taxi cars.
So they lived a kind of a charmed life, and if we're fortunate, then this engine, the evidence shows that it's only 30 bored over, which means it wasn't that bad to begin with.
Yeah.
Which means it's probably on its first rebuild, which is a good sign. You got a guy that apparently knew what he was doing, and Ed's got some background on him, and Ed has looked it over, and we all know that Ed is the answer to all your engine problems, okay?
Not necessarily. I hope so.
Well, we know so.
That's the matter of what just happened to be on it. I think some of them, this particular Buick, if it was in the Riviera, had 2 4-barrels.
Whoa.
Yeah, they came with 2 4-barrels.
Yeah, and then the Riviera had aluminum valve covers that said Buick on them.
Right.
Okay.
So those are still available.
Yeah.
And you
So-
can see you got a pretty good size intake here. And,
Yeah.
you know, they might have just put this on here, but originally a lot of these, like you said, came with 2 4-barrels from the factory.
Yeah.
Very unusual.
This manifold, this one it only had 2 bolts in it.
Right. So it probably just was there to
Just there to
cover the
set,
hole.
yeah.
Yeah, and there are aftermarket 2 4-barrel setups available, and you can also put 2 4-barrel fuel injection carburetors on here, so you end up with a really good situation and a lot of fuel.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a Buick guy about an hour ago. He said it was not that uncommon to get 500 horsepower of these things. Well, they're not even working. You got a lot of cubic inches, you got a lot of potential,
And a lot of airflow.
and a lot of airflow, which means that it was a good design from the beginning,
Yeah.
which is going back a long, long ways. This engine was designed in the early 50s.
Yeah.
But
53, I think.
all right, 53 offered the first one,
Was the first V8.
and that was the
Buick, and that's
322
Yeah.
that came in the Skylarks.
Basically the same engine.
Yeah, and this just kept getting bigger and bigger. At some point, the physical block had to be expanded, so it doesn't cross over. In other words, the intake manifolds on this bigger series do not fit the smaller ones, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Like I have a real rare 3.2 setup for a Nailhead, but it won't fit on here.
Oh, is that?
Yeah, because it's a small one.
Smaller motor, yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing to do on it besides you decide what you're going to do with it. What car you're going to put it in and what accessories you put on it. Whether you put 2 4-barrels back on it and
Right.
the valve covers.
Right.
And then
But you don't think that you need to dig into it any
I
further?
don't think so. No, I wouldn't dig into it.
Okay.
Further than that.
Well, we build it, and if it adds, what he sees is that it was done by a quality builder, then we take off from here.
What are these all these markings here? What is
Well,
this
that's
all
the
about?
date it was made. That's a clock.
Okay.
So it was made at 3 o'clock shift.
Okay.
And this casting number shows the date it was made. So you could tell the guy that who's responsible for casting this motor.
You could go back if you
That
made
casting
it.
number was that
Accountability,
date,
right?
Yeah.
date at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
It was,
And Uncle Joe made that.
yeah, and if Uncle
was-
Joe messed up, we knew
If he
exactly.
messed up,
We knew
Wow.
we knew his home phone number.
yeah, he won't be here tomorrow.
No, he just won't show up anymore.
Yeah. Most of these motors are casting numbers like that, and it's kind of strange that you wouldn't think they would change that clock every day, but they did.
They did.
Yeah.
And if you learn to read this stuff,
Yeah.
it gives you a lot of information on the
Yeah.
individual engine.
Yeah, and it was what was
Now, about the
the numbers
transmission.
here on the front right here. I can't read them right now. I couldn't.
7K111 is 47.
So that could have been. It told you this exactly what motor this came out of.
Right. What kind of car?
What kind of car?
So was it equipped with 2.4s, which means it would have been a Riviera? I had a
I see
2.4.
7K1147. Is that an 05?
05, yeah.
Yes. No, it's an
And then there's a
09. It's an 09, I think. It's an 09. Right? Yeah.
09, yeah.
No, it's 059. What is that? Is that a 6 or a 0? I can't. Can you tell?
There's some paint in there.
Well, I think it's 059.
Mm-hmm.
But that's on stamped on the block, which means that it'll
Give me
tell
a
us
marker.
exactly
Give me a
how this
marker.
block was equipped from the factory. And these numbers are really important because some of them are hidden once the car's built. You put the intake manifold on it. You can't see this stuff anymore. Now Ed's got this super
Oh, look at that.
duper yellow stencil thing he bought back in the 1950s. Still using it. As you notice, it's gone down a half an inch. Look at that. Now, yeah, now we're talking.
We got a 495 here,
Right.
upside down.
And this is 7K 1147.
059.
Yep, exactly. Now the zero's kind of lightly struck.
Yeah.
Remember, this is done by hand.
Yeah, it's loud.
So, you know, it wasn't just a machine going down the line. People had input to it. They were marking and documenting
You got more?
where this car was supposed to go into. I mean, if they wanted to go into Riviera, they didn't want to go into a bus. So when the guys come down the line, they go, "Oh, I know where this engine goes,"
Yeah.
because things are moving pretty fast. Well, this helped them, and it helped us subsequently to know where this thing really came from. Which working backwards tells us how much horsepower. it has.
495 might be cubic inches. But I don't think so.
It is a rare humorous moment. You notice
Yeah.
we liked it they're rare because that wasn't really funny. But anyway,
The price goes up.
the price goes up, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah. Anytime that you can identify something, and the price always goes up.
Thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. It makes
Oh,
it
that's fun.
So we need to
documentable.
identify as much stuff as we can.
But I have called a number of Buick people. I want to make certain that this thing wasn't a big dud, because not every big engine is a great engine, and Ed knows that. There are some really good ones, and there are ones so hot.
What's this? A 914 Nailhead.
This engine is still influencing,
It's got the same
Engine
head on this
design to
side
this
So
day.
they're matching numbers on the two heads.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
so that's good.
That's all good.
It's a good sign.
That money, no, that's worth more money too.
Can you tell Ed's trying to sell it to me? I mean, is it just coming through?
It's cheap. It's cheap.
What else are we going to need to make this motor a totally complete motor, other than a water pump? What do we need to get to make it a complete motor? We got an intake, we got rock arm covers, we got a pan.
I have some other parts for it.
Like, what do
I
you
got a
got?
flywheel, and I got the thing that bolts on here,
Right.
which will cost you with the
Oh, the crossover tube.
thermostat.
Okay.
I have that. I
Okay.
got the balancer and the flywheel.
Okay.
So
That's really about it, isn't it?
that's about it.
What about a distributor?
Distributor's in right there.
Oh, it
But
is.
usually the Buick, the two 4 barrels had a dual point distributor.
So by that we can assume if this is the original distributor that this was not a 2.4.
It was not a dual port distributor because it would have had 2 points.
Right.
Points
Two
in it.
sets of points.
2 sets of points.
My guess is you can buy those new.
I'm sure you can rebuild it.
I just need to research this stuff and find out if it's out there, and I'm sure it is somewhere. We get some aluminum rock arm
And this
covers.
has part
always.
numbers on it too. Tells you
there
where
we
it
go.
is, and there's all kinds
Can you
of
photograph that?
some kind of part number on it. So it's a Delco Rini distributor, and there's the part number on it.
5822.
Yeah, that's worth more money.
Bale
too.
housing.
All this stuff's.
Ka-ching, ka-ching. What's
It has some funny numbers on here too. You have to remember these. Memorize these numbers.
1, 2,
Firing
7, 8,
order.
4, 5.
What are we missing here, though? We're missing something, and I can't put my finger on it. I can't think of what it is. Oh, I know what I want to ask you. What transmission options does this bigger engine give us? Because that's one of the big reasons,
It actually came with a turbo 400.
which is a more modern
Yeah, modern 3-speed transmission. It's one of the better transmissions
that they ever
Chevrolet
built.
ever built. Yeah,
And how physically big is it relative to? I know this you're
a
asking
little bit, probably a little longer
than the original,
than the original.
than the
yeah.
Dynaflow.
Yeah.
But not
the
fatter,
Dynaflow
not-
was kind of a skinny transmission too, so I
Right.
don't know about floorboard clearance. Sometimes.
You don't have one kicking
400
around,
Turbo 400?
yeah, that we could look at, just look
Yeah,
at,
sure. Yeah,
maybe even buy
sure.
to rebuild it.
Yeah.
Because that would tell me a lot about what I'm trying to do is talk to the owner about the prospect of putting this in a 53 car, and I don't want to have to get in there and find out everything's too big or too
Oh, yeah,
long.
Yeah.
No, I realize it's going to be different,
Yeah.
but the benefit is we've got a much more modern transmission as between the Dynaflow, right?
Yeah, the Dynaflow was a 2-speed,
And this is a
3-speed.
okay, and it
So
has
it'd be
other
a lot fun and a lot more easier to drive.
yeah, and
Shift better.
yeah. And it's more easily serviced, I'm guessing.
Oh yes, a lot easier.
Yeah, because you're not looking for old funky Dynaflow parts.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, it's a really good switch.
It's an excellent switch.
Yeah, and you still preserve the Buick thing, and you've got
Yeah.
much bigger motor, more horsepower,
Yeah.
and we haven't sacrificed anything. We can still put AC brackets and all that crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm looking for pros and cons to help him make a decision.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to try and convince him to do it because I think it's a really good call.
So that would be a good deal if you go. Yeah, if the car's restored.
Yeah, well,
You
he's
care if it's
looking
down
at
the
it like
right
a
number wise on the car.
Yeah.
You're gonna take it to a big show and. It's
yeah.
not
I
the
mean,
right
you put an
motor.
LS in there, everybody just goes,
yeah,
yeah, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Nobody cares. It's
Okay.
just it's an easy way out, and unfortunately, it has about as much magic as stepping on your own foot. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
And everybody's got one, so why would you be interested?
Yeah.
There's not a lot of these out there, and if you put it in a 53 Skylark, whoa, baby.
Yeah.
There's already one of these been built that I'm familiar with, and it is a knockdown car
Yeah.
over in California.
Yeah.
So that's the purpose of being here. So I think we got our answers. You said you had a tranny kicking around somewhere. We could just.
Yeah, let's see if I have one on. Right here, even though it's broke.
Yeah. You have one that's not broke because that looks kind of funky.
If you want to get measurements.
No, I just for the camera. I'm just saying. This isn't Turbo 400. Looks just like it. Is that a 400?
Yes.
Well, we get the busted up one out of the way then. We don't want to have that on camera. That makes us look like.
It wasn't busted until it fell off the shelf.
Well, we can't make that.
See,
Now, why does it have a cap in the back? Does that keep the fluid out pouring out the back?
The 350.
I'm sorry, what?
That's a 350 transmission.
Oh, and that does not bolt up.
No,
That's a 400.
that's a 400.
But that's the one we want.
That's a kind of 400 transmission you need, yeah.
3-speed automatic.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a Dynaflow.
Do you have a closed drive shaft now?
Well, he's going to put a Morrison chassis on it, and all we got to do is.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, now you're talking a different story. The Morrison chassis.
Right.
Now you've got the guy that has the motor mounts and the
Right.
rear mounts, and
See, if we
then
get
you
this
got
thing,
different rear end under it.
yeah, if we get this thing decided ahead of time, he'll put the motor mounts for the engine.
Yeah.
He'll put all the pickup for the Turbo 400. All that stuff will be built into the
Yeah,
chassis.
built in, and he's got to spend some money.
He wants to do it that way.
Well, yeah, a lot more money than I've got, but you know,
Well, I don't know
I'm
about that, Ed.
I'm just trying to make a couple bucks here.
Yeah,
And that guy's talking about spending $300,000.
I'm looking around here, Ed, and I see.
You see a lot of junk.
Yeah, which well, I'll happily take it
It's
off your
all
hands.
junk. It's actually junk. It's trash
Some of it is
until I sell it.
until you sell, and this becomes
Then it becomes merchandise. Then.
merchandise,
Yeah, right
golden merchandise.
Yeah,
as
right
it
after you
turns
sell
out.
it.
Yeehaw!
On this side of the counter, it's junk.
Okay, so
Merchandise.
you'd have one of these you could sell us.
I don't know if I do or not.
Well, that one's sitting right there is not.
It's got his name on it. Says that.
It's got
Yeah, I'm thinking it says Ed. I don't know if you can hide anymore, Ed,
Yeah,
unless you got 6 or 7 Eds around here.
yeah, well,
That's what kind of
there's
doubt.
a Ed.
But you
Eds
don't. But
somewhere.
anyway, they're available.
Yeah, they are.
They're not hard to find.
Okay.
Okay, anything else we're going to be needing if, under the circumstance that we have a new chassis, we just build everything to fit this?
Oh, that'd be awesome to have that new chassis.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it does solve a lot of problems. I mean,
It
you can
does,
spend a
yeah.
lot of time making it original,
Yeah.
and you can
What
spend a lot
about
of
the
time.
front suspension? What do you put on that chassis? A late model suspension of some
Mhm,
kind?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
exactly.
Yeah,
We'll still use the wire wheels and tires. So
yeah. Of course,
from the
yeah.
exterior, I don't know if you're going to be able to tell it very much.
Probably not.
But you could spend so much time restoring that old stuff
Yeah.
that really, when he came to that point, I said, you know what, I'm on board.
Yeah.
A lot of people would say, oh no, don't do that. You know,
Yeah.
it all gets down to what you want. And if you don't cut the car up and you do it tastefully and it's done well, then you've done the car a favor. If you just cut it up and put some, oh, well, you know, there's always all manner of ways to do something. And that's
I
what
love classic cars.
well, I do too, but this makes them a little more drivable. And, you know,
Some time ago, I was in, not to change the subject, I was in one of my exhaust shops over in Scottsdale, and this car was up on the rack, and I was just amazed at this car. And pretty soon the guy came to get it, and it was just a little tailpipe rattle that they would weld the bracket on, let it down again. And I think it was a 56 Cadillac station wagon.
whoa,
Woody.
whoa.
Woody with original leather, dark maroon leather interior.
Good
in it.
Lord.
And it had the Cadillac, again with the wood package on it, station wagon,
Mm-hmm.
and it had the gold package on it, which would have been the gold wheels, the gold emblems, and the roof rack on top of it, on the car.
Yeah,
And he says it was one of 7 built.
right.
This
I
guy
never
is
even
Scottsdale.
heard of it.
I took it over to the coach builder and said,
Right.
okay, we want the gold package on this, so we want the Woody. And
All Woodies were
it
built
was
that way,
It was a
except for Fords.
4-door hardtop station wagon.
Mm-hmm.
And and it was just an amazing car. And the guy, there was a few miles on it, maybe 17 or 18,000 miles on it.
Gee,
The old guy in Scottsdale owned it, and
Wow.
I bugged him a little bit about, I don't think it's worth a whole lot of money, and he just wasn't interested in talking to me that much. But we did have a good conversation, and
he tried to steal it. Let's put it right out
Yeah.
there.
it
Okay.
was an amazing car. And I just
Yeah.
love that car like that.
That is amazing.
Yeah, just
Wow.
amazing with that.
Well, the Woody thing was over in the late 40s, so
yeah.
Yeah.
it was down to a fractional number of cars, and the guys that were building them were almost out of business.
Yeah.
So they were tickled
The
to death
coach
to get 3 or
shops
4
The last
cars to build.
coach shop that I ever knew was kind of a coach shop was Ford. Sent some Mustangs off the assembly line to come over to Roush or somebody,
Hmm.
and they put all the accessories on it. And totally another building, a private building somewhere, and they ran through there and made the Cobras out of them, out of a Mustang Cobra. Put all the decals and stuff like that. That's probably the last one I've ever known as far as a manufacturer sent it over to a coach or a private company to have those accessories.
Well, they didn't have the
put on,
facilities at the factory. They didn't want to fool with them.
Right.
So they'd hire a good quality builder, and they say, look, you build the convertibles, you build the wagons, you build the race cars.
Sure.
And
There's a little picture right behind you is an LS motor. If you want to take a little picture of those on the head flows on this intake.
This here?
The intake flows here like this I was talking about, the Buick.
Okay.
They're long, skinny like that. And that's why
Okay.
that's why they flow so well.